Hello everybody, Washtay. As you may remember from our last video, my name is Scott Mainprize, and while I have Algonquin background, I didn't know very much about the history of Indigenous, non-Indigenous relations the whole time I was growing up, or even while I was teaching in an Inuit school in Opaluk, Nunavik, which is just north of where our new fantastic Governor General, Mary Simon, is from. But I really didn't start to learn the details of our history until I was teaching in northern Manitoba at University College of the North, where I had the opportunity to learn with first generation survivors, second generation survivors, and non-Indigenous students who knew absolutely nothing about the history on Northern Turtle Island. And it was in this class, which to its credit was part of the school's action following the calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And I want to share a little bit more today. So I'd like to start off by acknowledging that we are coming together virtually. So we are coming together across the territories of more than 630 different Indigenous nations, each one of which has a unique relationship to the lands of Turtle Island. That we're grateful for all Indigenous people who continue to care for and remain interconnected to the land. Miigwech, Nakarmeek, Newin, for knowing that our ongoing survival is connected to the land above all else. So I'd like to start off today by talking a little bit about what we erroneously call the 60s Scoop, which was the government enforced forced adoption system of Indigenous peoples. And we colloquially call this the 60 Scoop because it minimizes the scope of how we think about it, right? If we think about it in terms of it being the 60 Scoop, we think of it as being no more than a decade. And in fact, maybe it's less than a decade. Maybe they rounded up. Incorrect, right? This is not the case. And the forced adoption system actually occurred from at least the 1950s, if not well before it, just with lack of documentation, up into and beyond the turn of the new millennium. So starting in the 1950s and ongoing up until only a few years ago, if not continuing today, more than 35,000 Indigenous children were forcibly removed from Indigenous families, Indigenous communities, and into not only colonial families across Canada, across Turtle Island, but around the world. So, and again, these weren't situations where parents were trying to give their children up for adoption. No, this was where the government, in coordination with the social services department of the time, and physically carried out by Indian agents, went into family homes on Indigenous communities and forcibly removed children and took them away without the consent of the families in any capacity. And in many cases, children that have been forced through this system have grown up their entire lives entirely disconnected from their Indigenous ancestry, not even knowing that they were adopted or adopted from an Indigenous community on North America. I went to one conference 3 years ago and met a 19-year-old who has grown up in New Zealand. Only recently had he learned that he was, in fact, Indigenous from Turtle Island, and that he had been a part of the millennial scoop and shipped to New Zealand. So when we think about the ideas that we'll start to be talking about as we as individuals and on the level of nation to nation reconciliation, these aren't issues of the past. Certainly they've happened historically for hundreds of years, but these are issues that are ongoing today. In fact, only a few years ago, the Canadian government agreed to a settlement for those that were victims of the forced adoption system. The problem being that if somebody didn't register as part of this class action suit in time, and the time lagged in August of 2019, then they are ineligible for any type of compensation. And the government knows that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of Indigenous people of Northern Turtle Island, not only across Turtle Island, but around the world, that still don't know that they're victims of this system. And so I just wanted to flag the forced adoption system today, and really with that caveat of not thinking of it as the 60s scoop, because this is an issue that has gone on for more than 50 years and still continues to go on today. So I know that's heavy. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great day. Nakramik, Miigwech. See you soon.